When a man is genuinely interested in a woman, his behavior changes in subtle but revealing ways. He becomes more observant, more intentional, more cautious with his emotional investments. What many women don't realize is that attraction does not immediately lead to certainty. Before a man allows himself to fully commit, he looks for information. He watches how a woman carries herself, how she handles pressure, how she reacts when things don't go her way. This is not always conscious or malicious. It is psychological, it is instinctive, and it is deeply rooted in how human beings assess emotional safety, respect, and long-term compatibility. Men test women they want, not because they enjoy manipulation, but because commitment carries risk. Emotional vulnerability, investment of time, and the possibility of loss all require reassurance. A man wants to know if the woman in front of him is emotionally stable, secure in herself, and capable of navigating challenges without chaos. He wants to know whether her confidence is real or performative, whether her boundaries are solid or situational, whether her self-worth depends on his behavior or stands on its own. These questions are rarely asked directly. They are answered through observation. Testing is not always dramatic. Often it shows up in moments that seem insignificant: a delayed response, a change in tone, a small disappointment, a disagreement that doesn't get resolved immediately. These moments reveal far more than grand gestures ever could. Under pressure, people show who they truly are. Men understand this intuitively. So instead of asking a woman who she is, they watch how she moves when things feel uncertain. From a psychological perspective, this behavior is rooted in attachment dynamics and threat assessment. Men are socialized to protect, provide, and maintain control over their environment. When choosing a partner, they subconsciously assess whether a woman adds stability or volatility to their life. A woman who reacts emotionally to every perceived slight signals unpredictability. A woman who collapses under uncertainty signals emotional dependence. A woman who remains composed, grounded, and self-respecting signals strength. Strength, to a man seeking a serious connection, is not aggression or dominance. It is emotional regulation. It is restraint. It is knowing who you are without needing constant validation. One of the biggest misconceptions women have is assuming that being tested means they are being disrespected. While disrespectful behavior should never be tolerated, not all testing is disrespect. Sometimes it is simply curiosity. Sometimes it is a man trying to understand the emotional terrain of the woman he is considering. The danger comes when a woman interprets every test as a threat and responds defensively, emotionally, or by over-explaining herself. That reaction often answers the very question he is silently asking, and not in her favor. Men pay attention to how women handle ambiguity. When plans change, when communication fluctuates, when attention is inconsistent, a man is watching to see whether a woman panics or stays grounded. Emotional intelligence shows itself in restraint. A woman who does not chase clarity in moments of uncertainty demonstrates confidence in her own value. She trusts that what is meant for her will meet her where she stands. She does not force understanding. She allows behavior to speak. This is where feminine strength often gets misunderstood. Strength does not mean confronting every issue immediately or demanding reassurance at the first sign of discomfort. Strength is the ability to sit with discomfort without allowing it to control your actions. It is the ability to observe without reacting, to process without projecting, to respond rather than react. Men are drawn to women who possess this quiet power because it signals emotional maturity. It tells him that this woman will not make his life harder during stressful moments. It tells him she can stand beside him, not lean on him for emotional regulation. A man testing a woman is often testing himself as well. He is assessing whether he feels calm around her, whether he feels respected, whether he can be himself without emotional punishment. When a woman responds to uncertainty with accusations, emotional outbursts, or attempts to control, it triggers resistance. Not because he wants to dominate, but because he senses instability. Emotional volatility feels unsafe. Composure feels safe. Many women unknowingly fail these tests by trying too hard to secure the connection. They explain themselves excessively, clarify feelings that were never questioned, justify their worth through effort. They believe that proving themselves will create security. In reality, security is created by consistency and self-respect. The more a woman chases understanding, the more she signals that she is afraid to lose something she does not yet have. That fear becomes visible, and fear rarely inspires commitment. Confidence, on the other hand, communicates abundance. A woman who knows her value does not scramble when attention shifts. She does not rush to fix what has not been broken. She remains present, warm, and observant, but she does not abandon herself to keep someone interested. Men notice this. They feel it. It creates a sense of intrigue and respect that cannot be manufactured through performance. Another psychological layer of testing involves boundaries. Men often push lightly against a woman's limits to see where she stands. This may look like subtle jokes that cross a line, last-minute changes, or requests that require her to compromise her comfort. These moments are not about control. They are about information. He wants to know if she honors herself or betrays herself to maintain harmony. A woman who calmly enforces her boundaries without anger or apology demonstrates self-trust. She shows that she values herself enough to say no without drama. That is deeply attractive. Boundaries do not require explanation. Over-explaining weakens them. When a woman feels the need to justify her limits, she communicates uncertainty. A grounded woman states her position clearly and allows others to respond however they choose. She does not negotiate her standards. She does not fear being misunderstood. She understands that the right person will respect clarity, not resent it. Emotional control is another area where men observe closely. Life is unpredictable. Relationships encounter stress. A man wants to know how a woman handles emotional pressure. Does she lash out or withdraw? Does she blame or reflect? Does she escalate or de-escalate? Emotional regulation is not suppression. It is awareness. It is knowing what you feel without letting feelings dictate your behavior. A woman who can experience emotion without being consumed by it signals resilience. This does not mean becoming cold or detached. Warmth and openness matter, but warmth without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Emotional openness without self-control becomes chaos. The balance is what men are drawn to. A woman who can express herself calmly, who can address issues without emotional flooding, who can pause before responding, creates emotional safety. Safety is the foundation of trust. Trust is the foundation of commitment. Understanding that men test women they want changes the way a woman interprets behavior. Instead of internalizing uncertainty as rejection, she sees it as information. Instead of reacting emotionally, she observes patterns. She pays attention to consistency over words. She trusts her intuition without letting anxiety lead. She remains centered in herself. This mindset shift is powerful because it removes desperation from the equation. A woman who is not desperate for validation does not feel threatened by testing. She does not see it as something to survive. She sees it as a mutual process. Just as he is evaluating her, she is evaluating him. She watches how he handles her boundaries, how he responds to her composure, how he treats her when she does not overextend. Testing works both ways. When a woman understands this dynamic, she stops performing and starts being. She no longer feels the need to impress or convince. She allows her presence, her energy, and her consistency to speak for her. She knows that the right man will not be confused by her calm. He will be drawn to it. He will respect it. Men do not fall in love with emotional chaos. They fall in love with emotional steadiness. They commit to women who bring clarity, not confusion, peace, not pressure, strength, not neediness. This strength is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is quiet, grounded, and deeply self-assured. As you begin to understand why men test women psychologically, you also begin to reclaim your power. You stop seeing tests as something to pass and start seeing them as moments to stay true to yourself. You stop asking what he wants and start honoring what you need. You stop reacting and start choosing. That shift alone changes everything. Because the truth is, the moment you stop trying to control outcomes is the moment you become magnetic. The moment you stop chasing clarity is the moment clarity arrives. And the moment you stop proving your worth is the moment it becomes undeniable. As awareness deepens, a woman begins to notice that many of the tests men use are quiet, indirect, and easily misunderstood. They rarely announce themselves. They appear as small disruptions in comfort, subtle shifts in behavior, or moments where emotional discipline is required. These tests are not about catching a woman doing something wrong. They are about seeing how she responds when things are not perfectly aligned. Men learn more about a woman in moments of mild tension than they ever will in moments of ease. One of the most common tests involves attention and availability. A man may reduce communication slightly, become less responsive, or pull back just enough to create space. This is not always a game. Often, it is a way of observing whether a woman remains grounded or becomes anxious. Does she assume rejection, or does she allow space without panic? Does she flood him with messages, questions, or emotional explanations, or does she continue living her life with calm confidence? Men are highly attuned to emotional dependency. When a woman's emotional state rises and falls based on his behavior, it signals imbalance. When she remains steady, it signals inner security. From a psychological standpoint, this test reveals attachment style. A woman who reacts with urgency, reassurance-seeking, or emotional pressure communicates anxious attachment. A woman who remains warm yet self-contained communicates secure attachment. Secure energy feels safe. It feels sustainable. Men who are considering commitment pay close attention to this because they instinctively know that long-term relationships magnify emotional patterns. What feels manageable early on can become overwhelming later. Another subtle test revolves around respect. This may appear as teasing, disagreement, or a difference of opinion. Men watch how a woman handles being challenged. Does she become defensive or hostile? Does she take it personally or remain composed? Does she feel the need to prove herself right, or can she allow differences without losing self-respect? Emotional maturity shows itself when a woman can hold her ground calmly without turning disagreement into conflict. Respect is not demanded through force. It is earned through consistency. A woman who reacts emotionally to every challenge teaches others how to treat her. When she escalates, she communicates that her sense of self is fragile. When she remains calm and self-assured, she communicates strength. Men respect women who respect themselves enough to stay regulated even when emotions are present. There is also a test related to boundaries that many women overlook. A man may ask for something small that slightly inconveniences her. He may suggest a plan that doesn't fully align with her preferences. He may make a comment that subtly pushes her comfort zone. He is watching to see whether she abandons herself to please him or honors herself without guilt. A woman who consistently sacrifices her comfort to maintain connection teaches a man that her boundaries are flexible. Over time, flexibility turns into expectation. Healthy boundaries are expressed without anger and without apology. When a woman calmly says no or expresses her preference without over-justifying, she demonstrates self-trust. Men respect clarity. They may not always like boundaries, but they respect women who have them. A woman who holds her boundaries teaches a man how to treat her. A woman who ignores them teaches him that her needs come last. Emotional control is another major area of testing. Men observe how women handle disappointment. When plans change, when effort feels uneven, when something feels off, a man is watching closely. Does she explode emotionally or withdraw dramatically? Does she communicate calmly or resort to passive aggression? Emotional intelligence is revealed not by the absence of emotion, but by the ability to manage it. Many women believe that expressing every feeling immediately is honesty. In reality, emotional honesty without regulation often becomes emotional dumping. A composed woman takes time to process her feelings before expressing them. She does not unload emotion in the heat of the moment. She chooses the right time, the right tone, and the right words. This level of control signals maturity and self-respect. Another quiet test involves how a woman responds to inconsistency. Men are aware that early dating often includes uncertainty. They want to see whether a woman can tolerate ambiguity without becoming reactive. A woman who demands constant reassurance, labels, or explanations early on may unknowingly push a man away. Not because her needs are wrong, but because the timing reveals insecurity rather than confidence. A confident woman allows things to unfold. She does not rush intimacy or commitment. She understands that real connection develops through time and consistency. She observes behavior rather than interrogating intent. This patience communicates trust in herself. Men are drawn to women who trust themselves because it suggests they will not become controlling or emotionally overwhelming later. One of the most misunderstood tests is silence. Men often use silence to process their own thoughts and emotions. When a woman interprets silence as punishment or rejection and reacts emotionally, she reveals fear of abandonment. When she allows silence without assuming the worst, she reveals emotional stability. Silence is not always a message. Sometimes it is simply space. A woman who fills every silence with anxiety-driven communication teaches a man that she cannot self-soothe. A woman who can sit with silence without spiraling teaches him that she is emotionally resilient. This quality is deeply attractive because it signals independence and strength. Men also test how women handle praise and validation. A woman who depends heavily on compliments to feel worthy reveals insecurity. A woman who receives praise with grace but does not require it to feel confident reveals self-assurance. Men want to feel appreciated, not responsible for a woman's self-esteem. Emotional balance creates attraction. Emotional dependence creates pressure. Another area of testing involves how a woman speaks about herself and others. Men listen carefully to how women describe past relationships, challenges, and conflicts. A woman who speaks with bitterness, blame, or victimhood reveals unresolved emotional wounds. A woman who speaks with accountability, reflection, and emotional clarity reveals growth. This matters because past patterns often repeat themselves. Men are evaluating whether they will eventually become the next story of blame. A woman with self-respect does not overshare her wounds early on. She does not perform vulnerability to create intimacy. She allows trust to build naturally. Emotional depth is revealed over time, not rushed for connection. Men respect women who pace intimacy because it signals discernment. Another subtle test involves emotional containment. Men may share something personal to see how a woman responds. Does she listen without judgment? Does she hold space without trying to fix or control? Does she respect confidentiality? Emotional safety is built through presence, not problem solving. A woman who can simply be present without emotional intrusion creates trust. When a woman reacts strongly to a man's vulnerability, whether by minimizing it or overwhelming it with her own emotions, she breaks emotional safety. A woman who listens calmly and responds thoughtfully strengthens it. Men remember how they feel around a woman more than what was said. Emotional memory lasts. These tests are not about perfection. Men are not looking for flawless women. They are looking for women who are self-aware, who can reflect rather than react, who can acknowledge mistakes without collapsing into shame, who can apologize without self-abandonment. Emotional maturity is not about never making mistakes. It is about how quickly and gracefully you recover from them. A woman who understands these dynamics stops taking behavior personally. She stops internalizing uncertainty as a reflection of her worth. She becomes curious instead of reactive. She observes patterns rather than chasing reassurance. She stays rooted in her values regardless of how someone else behaves. This inner steadiness changes the entire dynamic. When a woman remains composed during testing, she sends a powerful message. She communicates that her emotional world is stable, that her self-worth is not negotiable, that she does not need to control outcomes to feel secure. This energy invites respect. It invites curiosity. It invites deeper investment. Men do not test women to see how much they can take. They test to see how women respond. A woman who responds with calm confidence sets the tone for how she will be treated. A woman who responds with emotional chaos sets a different tone. The choice is not about manipulation, it is about self-leadership. As you begin to recognize these subtle tests, you stop feeling confused. You stop questioning yourself. You stop asking what you did wrong. Instead, you start asking more empowering questions. How did I show up? Did I honor myself? Did I stay grounded? Did I act from fear or from self-respect? These questions build emotional strength. The more you practice composure, the less testing feels threatening. You no longer see it as something to endure. You see it as information. You see it as an opportunity to stay aligned with who you are. And alignment is the foundation of confidence. Because the woman who understands these tests does not need to pass them by changing herself. She passes them by being herself fully, calmly, and unapologetically. She allows men to reveal themselves through their responses to her boundaries, her steadiness, and her self-respect. When a woman reaches this level of understanding, something profound shifts inside her. She no longer approaches interactions with the silent question of how to be chosen. Instead, she moves with the awareness that she is choosing as well. This internal shift is what changes how she responds to tests, not with strategy or calculation, but with grounded confidence. Her responses are no longer driven by fear of loss or desire for control. They are guided by self-respect, emotional awareness, and trust in her own value. Responding with confidence does not mean responding immediately. One of the most powerful forms of composure is pause. A woman who pauses before responding demonstrates emotional mastery. She allows herself time to assess what she feels and why. She does not react impulsively to discomfort. Men notice this restraint. It signals depth, intelligence, and emotional discipline. A pause communicates that she is not ruled by emotion, but she is deeply aware of it. When faced with inconsistency or uncertainty, a confident woman does not demand clarity in the heat of the moment. She allows behavior to reveal intention. She does not interrogate or accuse. She observes. If patterns of disrespect or imbalance emerge, she does not argue them into alignment. She adjusts her energy accordingly. She gives less access, less emotional investment, less availability, not as punishment, but as alignment. Her actions match reality, not hope. This is where many women struggle. They believe that expressing discomfort requires explanation. In truth, self-respect often requires silence. When a woman constantly explains her feelings, she teaches others that her boundaries are negotiable. A woman who quietly steps back when something no longer feels right teaches others that her presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. Men feel this shift immediately. It creates either respect or distance. Both outcomes are information. Composure also means refusing to chase emotional reassurance. When a woman feels the urge to seek validation, she turns inward instead. She asks herself what she needs, not what she wants him to say. She soothes her own nervous system. She grounds herself in reality. This self-regulation is powerful because it breaks the cycle of emotional dependence. Men sense when a woman does not need them to regulate her emotions. That sense of independence creates attraction rather than pressure. Responding with self-worth means letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. A woman who knows herself does not panic when she is misunderstood. She clarifies once, if necessary, calmly and briefly. After that, she allows others to interpret her however they choose. She understands that the right people will seek clarity, not assumptions. This emotional detachment from outcomes protects her peace and preserves her dignity. There will be moments when a man pushes a boundary intentionally or unintentionally. A confident response is clear, calm, and firm. No emotional charge, no defensiveness, no over-justification. She states her boundary and observes the response. If it is respected, trust deepens. If it is dismissed or challenged repeatedly, she does not argue. She disengages. This is not avoidance. It is discernment. Disengagement is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. It is not coldness, it is not punishment. It is the natural consequence of misalignment. A woman who disengages with grace teaches others how to treat her without saying a word. Men respect women who can walk away calmly far more than women who stay and fight for consideration. Calm withdrawal speaks louder than emotional confrontation. Self-worth also means resisting the urge to perform emotional labor for someone who has not earned it. A woman does not overfunction in the early stages of connection. She does not anticipate needs, manage moods, or fix confusion. She allows a man to show up. If he does, she meets him with warmth. If he does not, she does not compensate. This balance preserves polarity and mutual respect. Confidence shows itself in how a woman handles emotional triggers. When something touches an old wound, she does not project it onto the present moment. She takes responsibility for her inner world. She may choose to communicate later from a grounded place, without accusation, or she may choose to process privately and move on. Either way, she does not allow unprocessed emotion to dictate her behavior. This level of emotional maturity creates a sense of mystery, not through games, but through depth. A woman who does not reveal everything at once, who does not emotionally spill under pressure, who does not chase validation, becomes intriguing. Men are drawn to women who are emotionally present yet self-contained. It suggests that there is more to discover, not because she is withholding, but because she is grounded. When a woman responds to tests with calm confidence, she changes the power dynamic without trying to control it. Power is not taken, it is embodied. She becomes the emotional anchor in the interaction. Men either rise to that level or fall away. Both outcomes serve her. It is important to understand that responding with self-worth does not guarantee a specific outcome. It does not guarantee commitment from every man, but it guarantees something far more valuable. It guarantees that she will not lose herself in the process. She will not betray her values for attention. She will not abandon her intuition for temporary reassurance. A woman who embodies this energy becomes selective without becoming closed. She remains open-hearted but discerning. She allows connection without attachment to outcome. She enjoys presence without clinging. This balance is rare, and it is deeply attractive. Men who are emotionally healthy recognize this immediately. They feel safe, respected, and inspired. Men who are not emotionally available often feel uncomfortable. They may attempt to regain control through distance or mixed signals. A woman with self-worth does not chase either reaction. She allows truth to reveal itself. Over time, she begins to trust herself more than any external validation. She no longer asks whether she is doing things right. She asks whether she feels aligned. Alignment becomes her compass. When something feels off, she listens. When something feels nourishing, she allows it to grow. This is the quiet confidence that cannot be faked. It is built through self-awareness, emotional discipline, and repeated choices to honor oneself. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, but it is felt. Men do not test women to be cruel. They test to understand. When a woman understands herself, those tests lose their power. They no longer provoke fear or anxiety. They become moments of clarity, opportunities to stay grounded, invitations to lead herself. And this is where true feminine strength lives. Not in reaction, not in performance, not in chasing, but in presence, in restraint, in self-trust. A woman who moves this way does not need to prove her worth. She embodies it. She does not ask to be chosen. She allows herself to be experienced. And in that experience, the right man does not feel the need to test her for long.